So the Society of St. Andrew's work is all about abundance. And when I think about abundance, I think about that passage in Matthew about it will be given to you, pressed down, heaped up, and overflowing. And what I'd like to share with you about that is that comes from Roman times. This actually it was from Pompeii. But in the Roman marketplaces, in the agora, there would be market tables that would have these sinks in them. And each sink would have a hole at the bottom, and the table would have different size sinks. So there would be a quarter measure sink, and a half measure sink, and a full measure sink, and apparently some other size sinks as well. But when you went to the merchant to buy your grain, you would ask for the size measure you wanted. And the merchant would take a cork and stuff it in the bottom of the sink, and then would pour grain into the top of the sink to fill the sink. And when the sink was full and you agreed that the sink was full, you would sit under the sink, put out your apron or your cloth, and pull the cork. And then the grain would fall into your apron or cork. Oftentimes, though, once you got under the sink, the merchant would start scooping out the grain from the top so that you wouldn't get your full measure. But Matthew says God's like that good merchant. God is like the merchant who finds abundance, so that while you're under the sink and the cork is out, the merchant keeps pouring in that grain from the top so that there's more and more, and you have more than you ever expected you would receive. In this country, 40% of the food that is grown goes to waste. There is more than enough food to feed every hungry person. So the Society of St. Andrew's work is about using that abundance to feed hungry people. Next slide. It's also about being good stewards of God's creation. When food goes to waste, all of the inputs that go into creating that food goes to waste. The seed, the soil, the water, the use of the land, the farmer's time and energy, all of that input goes to waste as well. In the feeding of the 5,000, at the end, everyone has been fed. Jesus says to the disciples to go pick up the leftovers. Let nothing be wasted. Next slide. So throughout the United States today, at the same time that food goes to waste, there are hungry people. So 40 million people in this country are at risk for hunger. About 13 million of those people have no clue where their next meal is coming from. The other 27 million people are stretching their budget, not paying the light bill, taking half doses of medication, trying to do whatever they can to stretch their budget enough to put food on the table to feed their families. And while that is happening, at the farm level, so before the food even leaves the farm, more than 20 billion pounds of food goes to waste every year. And after the farm level, it's about 130 billion pounds that go to waste between the farm and your table. Next slide. So what if that excess produce could be used to feed hungry people instead? Next slide. Gleaning is an elegantly simple and common sense solution. Many of you all know that gleaning is a solution that has existed since Bible times. The Hebrew people were told when they came into the promised land to leave the corners of the field unharvested and to go through the field only once, leaving the rest for the poor, the widows, the orphans, and the refugees, for anyone who did not have land on which to grow their own food. The Society of St. Andrew has taken up this biblical idea of gleaning, and we do it today in fields across the country, digging, picking, and gathering food that is left behind after commercial harvest. In particular, this creates a very localized neighbor helping neighbor system of getting food to people who are hungry in communities. So local farmers offer their fields or their packing houses if they've harvested mechanically to us, sometimes farmers markets as well, so that we can send in local volunteers to glean, to picking, digging, gathering whatever is left over. We work with farmers in whatever way is easiest for the farmer. So if the food's in the fields, we'll send volunteers out to glean. If the food is in a packing house and needs to be picked up, we'll send a pickup truck that somebody from a local church drives to go and grab that food and take it back to their church to bag and distribute, or a box truck or a tractor trailer, whatever it takes to get the food from the farm, we will do that and get it to agencies feeding the hungry. So then the food goes to local feeding agencies, food banks, food pantries, shelters, soup kitchens, emergency food relief programs, senior and child hunger programs. Any way that we can, we get it to the local feeding agencies who then share it with local hungry people. Because it's a neighbor helping neighbor network, we will ask if a church is sending volunteers, we'll say, what agencies are you already working with in your community? And so we'll try to hook those congregations up to be able to serve the same agencies that they're already supporting financially, or agencies that are right in the neighborhood of the church. In addition to that, because we're working locally, and we're usually working with family farmers, we can schedule gleanings according to when we have agencies that can pass out food. So if your food pantry that you work with hands out on the third Thursday, wouldn't it make sense to glean on the third Wednesday so that you've got fresh produce ready to hand out? That's the kind of system that we try to work out. And then again, the food is going to local hungry people. Whenever possible, the food that we glean stays in the same county where it was grown. Next slide. Neighbor Helping Neighbor model offers a true community-based solution to hunger. Next slide. We glean at farmers markets. We glean with produce pickups. This middle slide is green beans. We work with a farmer in Tennessee who throws away 1,000 pounds of green beans every 6 to 10 minutes. 9 hours a day, 154 days of a growing season, because his sale contract is for 3 to 5 inch green beans. And any green beans that don't meet that standard, they go through a sorter in his packing house, and until he met us, they were going to a landfill. But we can send churches that have pickup trucks just to go sit under a conveyor belt that drops green beans into the back of a pickup truck, 5 minutes to fill up a pickup truck. They can go back and take it to their community. So that there are churches who come, say, Monday afternoon at 1, they bring 2 or 3 pickup trucks, and people who are hungry in their community know that over the whole 154-day growing season, they can come to this church at 5 o'clock on Monday afternoon and get a bag of green beans to take home to feed their family for the week. We also do crop drops, and this is when we have a whole tractor trailer load of food that becomes available. We will take that usually to a larger church in a community, drop that in the parking lot, volunteers come and bag it up, and the church arranges for community agencies to come and just drive around and pick up the number of bags of produce they can use to serve their clients. Next slide. So, does this system work? In 2018, the Society of St. Andrew worked with 884 growers in 26 states. We gave food directly to over 2,000 feeding agencies. A number of those were major food banks that then serve 400 to 600 smaller agencies as well. Thousands more agencies then served indirectly through food shared by the major food banks. We recovered over 23 million pounds of food, which equates to 69 million servings of fresh produce that reached about 9.9 million hungry people in the United States. We had over 6,000 gleaning events, so that's about 20-ish a day throughout the course of the year, and over 30,000 volunteers, 92,000 volunteer hours. And the value of the produce that we distributed for free was over $14 million. So how you can get involved with this, talk to us. We'd love to help your community get involved in gleaning. If we don't have boots on the ground doing farm gleanings, we can talk to you about how to do farmers market gleanings in your area and work with us. If there are other gleaning organizations in your area, we know about a lot of them, and we can help hook you up with those agencies. So we really want people to be involved in finding abundance that is out there and then using that abundance to feed hungry people in your communities. Thank you.